And obviously Amanda Serrano holds the belt in your division. Is that a fight for you which really whets your appetite?
Definitely. I love that fight. We'll see what happens on Saturday night. She's got them all on the line on Saturday night, so I'll be sitting watching that one quite eagerly. But I really fancy the fight with Serrano. I know a lot of critiques out there say otherwise and that I'm not ready for Serrano, but I love that fight and I feel very confident.
How do you think you would fare? I've just seen your confidence come through there, Skye, with your answer. How do you feel you would fare against her? How do you think you would have to box to beat her?
I think Serrano is very dangerous with an opponent that stands in front of her and wants to trade with her. Two things I'm not going to do. I don't care how boring people think I am. I'm going to win that fight exactly how I have to win that fight, and that's to box and move. I would not get involved in anything. I'm fit. I can box and move 10 rounds, and I think I'll box rings around her.
I will not begrudge young Skye Nicholson her ambition, her goal to share the ring with pound-for-pound fighter, perhaps soon-to-be undisputed featherweight champion Amanda Serrano, on the premise that that's what you want to hear. I mean, just imagine if Skye were saying the opposite, that that's not the kind of fight she's aiming for. For what it's worth, she has the right idea, even if she is somewhat green here and now.
Both Skye and Amanda are going to be in action this upcoming Saturday in separate bouts. Skye's fighting a pressure fighter in Tania Alvarez, albeit a very crude pressure fighter, and Amanda Serrano. She's also fighting a pressure fighter, a more seasoned pressure fighter in Mexico's Erica Cruz.
It's a good homework assignment for Skye Nicholson. I favor her to win a points decision. I talked about that in a previous video. It's a good homework assignment for Skye to get a fix on handling pressure and pressure fighters.
Skye's best weapon are her legs.
That's her best weapon in that fight. The same would apply in an Amanda Serrano fight. The disconnect is that Amanda Serrano, in spite of being able to apply pressure, she's not actually an according to Hoyle pressure fighter.
There's a difference. A very subtle difference.
Amanda Serrano's actually a boxer puncher, a spiteful one, a volume puncher, but she's still a boxer puncher. She doesn't just go out there leading with her face, winging shots.
She works off the jab and sets up the punches.
She does her best to keep herself in an optimal position to get off punches.
Maintaining that bit of space between herself and her opponent to add something to the shots, really drive them, give herself room.
She's not a pressure fighter, and she shouldn't be confused with one because of her work rate.
She can apply pressure, she can put the squeeze on a fighter, but she's not an according to Hoyle pressure fighter. And according to Hoyle, pressure fighter is more an Erica Cruz than an Amanda Serrano.
That's why Amanda Serrano has a stylistic advantage over Erica Cruz, and that's why Skye Nicholson has a stylistic advantage over Amanda Serrano. You heard that right.
Skye's got the right style for the job, even if she's green.
Pressure fighter's kryptonite is a boxer puncher, one who can alternate from offense to defense. Pressure fighter's kryptonite is a boxer puncher, and a boxer puncher's kryptonite is a pure boxer.
An economic, defensively responsible outside fighter, outside jabber that limits that boxer puncher's opportunities to get off punches.
Different dichotomy between a pure boxer and a boxer puncher versus a boxer puncher and a pressure fighter. The boxer puncher doesn't actually have to go out there and find that pressure fighter because the pressure fighter is going to bring the fight to them. It's the opposite with a pure boxer.
Boxer puncher has to go out there and try to find that pure boxer, try to pin them down to get off shots, and it's difficult because that pure boxer is going to fight on the balls of their feet, sticking and moving from the outside.
Skye Nicholson said it herself. She wouldn't allow herself to get sucked into a war, boring or otherwise. She's going to fight her fight.
Stay on the outside, box and move.
We've seen in the past that a bit of movement can greatly offset Amanda Serrano's power. We saw that in the Mercado fight. More recently, we saw that in the Serrano fight. That while those fighters were losing wide on the cards, a bit of movement was able to buy them time and greatly offset Amanda Serrano's power. That's mostly because those fighters weren't allowing Amanda to set her feet and really sit on her punches. They kept her moving.
Bear in mind that neither Yamileth Mercado or Serrano are defensive specialists. Neither one of the two are really, according to Hoyle, pure boxers. Fighting on the fly isn't their speciality, but it is Skye Nicholson's speciality.
She's more fluid with that style than they are because she isn't, according to Hoyle, pure boxer.
Tack on that she's a southpaw, just like Amanda.
Here and now, I think that Skye Nicholson is too green for that fight, even if she does have the right base style for the job. But the saving grace is that Skye's not about to fight Amanda anyway. She's got plenty of time to amass more professional experience.
She needs that experience because she hasn't fought a puncher yet, let alone a monumental puncher like an Amanda Serrano. You might have the right base style for the job, but do you have the durability to take what gets in?
Something might. Amanda Serrano, she doesn't abandon the body, you know. She's actually quite an accomplished body puncher. And when you want to take a moving target's legs away, slow them down, you go to the body.
Amanda regularly goes to the body.
I don't know that we're ever going to see this fight because Amanda and Skye are in very different places in their career. And put simply, Amanda Serrano herself, if she wins this weekend, she's got bigger fish to fry. She's going to fight Katie Taylor for a second time. If she wins, we might get 3 fights out of them.
Taylor versus Serrano 3. Maybe Serrano versus Baumgartner if Baumgartner wins this weekend.
Amanda's got bigger fish to fry. Her and Skye are in very different places in their careers.
So as stated, I won't begrudge Skye Nicholson for aiming high. That's what you want to see in an unbeaten up-and-comer.
We don't know here and now that Skye Nicholson and Amanda Serrano will ever meet, but as long as Amanda still is a champion at featherweight, it is a distinct possibility, irrespective of what happens at lightweight between Katie and Amanda should they meet for a second time. So long as Amanda's got belts at 126 pounds, she will be a person of interest for Skye Nicholson.
We're looking to get him out early April. Could even land on a Canelo Alvarez card, which would be huge for him. And yeah, ready to go. A box at least 3 times this year and start positioning him for a shot at the world heavyweight title. Of course, not this year, but 2024 and probably 2025. I believe you'll see Justis fight for the world heavyweight title.
News broke late yesterday, or early today in the wee hours of the morning, depending on where you are in the world, that Matchroom has signed unbeaten up-and-comer from the land down under, Australia, Justis Huni.
I've seen him, he's good.
More boxer than puncher, more athleticism, speed, and combinations than you would expect from a heavyweight.
Kid's got a ceiling.
Matchroom's latest acquisition, furthering their involvement and their investment overall in the Australian boxing scene, which really is a growing market with fighters like Tim Tszyu and Nikita Tszyu.
Paul Gallen did pretty well for himself down there. Fighter who crossed over from rugby over into boxing. Headlined a couple of shows down there. Did very well for himself.
Until recently, Justis Huni was solely promoted by Tasman Fighters, but now he's being co-promoted internationally by Matchroom, further enabling Matchroom to be involved in shows, decent-sized shows in the land down under.
In case anybody was thinking that Matchroom's Australian debut was just a one-off kind of deal, a one-off kind of situation, look at the number of Australian fighters they've already got signed.
Jacques Bravas, Liam Pato. I wonder that they don't have options on Stevie Sparks, who very recently defeated Montana Love in his neck of the woods, in his home turf. Dempsey McKean, Ebony Bridges, Skye Nicholson.
They've signed a lot of Australian fighters.
In addition to their most recent signee, Justis Huni, who sports professional record of 7 wins, no losses, and no draws, with 4 knockouts. This further enables Matchroom to do shows in the land down under with a lot of familiar favorites.
Irrespective of whether or not you think that Justis Huni can go all the way on the international stage, I've said it before, and I'll say it here again. The Australian boxing scene is a little different than the American one or the one in the United Kingdom. Their boxing scene is a bit more insulated, but it's not to their detriment.
They're capable of putting on decent-sized shows, decent-sized fights, all on their own in Australia. And when you tack on a Matchroom and all the resources that gives a fighter like Justis Huni, you can bring world boxing to Australia, with Justis Huni as the headliner.
Oh, granted that Matchroom might have Justis Huni boxing on an American show or a show that goes down in the United Kingdom, but the same is true in reverse. Justis Huni can headline in Australia, and you can bring global boxing, world boxing, to Australia.
Decorate the undercard with some international fighters, as well as some homegrown favorites, like a Skye Nicholson, like an Ebony Bridges, like a Dempsey McKean. And who's to say that the plan isn't to match Dempsey McKean against Justis Huni down the line?
Battle of the Unbeatens, that's a decent fight.
It's a good fight. You can supplement the effort with fighters like Brock Jarvis or Liam Bottle.
It's not just about signing a fighter you think can become a champion, you know. There's a bigger picture.
I say it all the time. Matchroom is a global promotional outfit, not a local promotional outfit. They're not limited to just catering to the Brits or the Americans. DAZN is a global streaming platform that caters to a global audience. And believe it or not, that's actually good for the sport, good for the fighters.
Now that Matchroom has signed Justis Huni, I expect that his fights, even the ones that happen in Australia, they're going to be shown on the DAZN platform.
And I've seen Justis Huni in action, several of his fights. He's actually a bit faster than you'd expect a heavyweight to be, more athletic, nimble, and coordinated than what you'd expect.
Not the biggest puncher, though.
He doesn't have the look of a knockout merchant. He's a more cerebral kind of heavyweight, a more cerebral kind of boxer.
It's a very good signing.
They're going to be working in tandem with Tasman Promotions, and what that essentially means is that the brunt of promoting Justis Huni isn't all on one promotional outfit. It's not all on Tasman, and it's not all on Matchroom. It's a joint effort.
That's beneficial to the fighter because that means he doesn't have to rely on just one promotional outfit for fights or fight dates.
You figure that if Tasman Promotions is doing a show in Australia, that show, if Justis Huni's on it, may end up on the DAZN platform. Even if all of Tasman Promotions' shows aren't necessarily on DAZN, those particular shows featuring Justis Huni, those shows may be shown on the DAZN platform in tandem with whatever he does under the Matchroom banner.
And I see the logic.
DAZN being a global streaming platform, you want to pull from a global audience, not just the American fight fans and not just the Brits, not just the Europeans.
But fight fans everywhere.
Boxing is more a global sport now than it ever was in previous eras. You've got fighters from all around the world, and if you can tap into all those individual markets
and make them a part of a cumulative, part of a larger pool, a larger audience overall.
The total's a large audience overall. Well, now you're cooking with rice.
I have to admit, I was a bit surprised when this news broke. I wasn't expecting this.
But it is a good way to start out the year, especially for Matchroom, who is continuing to add to their overall stable of fighters internationally.
Hey, Justis Huni, that's a good signing.
In men's featherweight and lightweight news, former WBC featherweight champion Gary Russell says, I would fight Isaac Cruz. I'll burn his ass up.
He's talking about a move from featherweight all the way up to lightweight past super featherweight. Personally, I don't think he's cut out to campaign as a 135-pound fighter.
I don't think he's cut out to campaign as a lightweight, though in addition to eyeing a move to the lightweight division, Russell isn't interested in taking on a soft touch. Instead, the Maryland resident would much rather swap fists with an established contender. I like little pit bull, Isaac Cruz. I like Isaac Cruz. I would fight Isaac Cruz, by and large. Cruz's popularity has skyrocketed following his competitive defeat at the hands of Gervonta Davis, though he was given the call on relatively short notice. The 24-year-old pressure fighter gave Davis all he could handle during their December of 2021 showdown. How would Isaac fare opposite the ring, a seasoned fighter and a former champion in Gary Russell Jr.? Well, you might think that Gary is a better boxer, fundamentally a better boxer than Isaac Cruz, and you might be right, but that doesn't mean that Gary's got the size.
Size counts. Don't let anybody tell you different.
Or the durability to successfully campaign as a lightweight, let alone opposite the ring a hard puncher, a pressure fighter, a physical fighter like an Isaac Cruz. Gary might have the right fundamentals for the job, but not the right level of physicality.
Gary said I like him too. He's a little dog. I'll burn his ass up, though.
It's been over a year since Gary Russell dropped a decision to Mark Magsayo. The very limited Mark Magsayo, albeit very hard-punching Mark Magsayo, down there at featherweight. Gary Russell Jr. has never been a particularly active fighter, and it's not to his benefit, it's to his detriment. Gary Russell, who's been fighting once a year for approximately 6 or 7 years, you heard that right, for the last 6 or 7 years, Gary Russell has been fighting just once a year, just once.
Yeesh. The last time that Gary Russell fought more than once in the same calendar year
was 2014. He actually saw action 3 times. But as of 2015, he's been keeping a very sparse schedule of activity, boxing just once a year the subsequent 6 or 7 years. That doesn't lend itself to a fighter's overall sharpness, let alone an aging fighter like a Gary Russell Jr., who's in his mid-30s. He's 34. He's not getting any younger. He's eyeing a move to lightweight, likely because the names at lightweight are worth a bit more money than the names at featherweight or super featherweight. Tack on the political situation. Emmanuel Navarrete is the current reigning WBO featherweight champion. He's going to be in action this weekend at super featherweight for what is the vacant WBO title. Ranked right behind him at featherweight, Isaac Dogboe and Robeisy Ramirez. They're going to be fighting for WBO interim status to line themselves up for the WBO featherweight title. What's going on by way of the WBO? By way of the WBA, Lee Wood, newly crowned WBA champion, is set to be sharing the ring with hard-punching Mauricio Lara. Not that it matters to Gary Russell Jr. because he wouldn't cross over to Matchroom for a fight anyway. Remember, Eddie Hearn offered him $1 million to come over and unify titles with Josh Warrington back when Josh had the IBF title, and Gary rejected the offer. He didn't do it. And that's not according to Eddie. That's according to Gary. He didn't cross over for Josh Warrington. He's not going to cross over for the winner of Wood versus Lara. So Luis Lopez, newly crowned IBF champion, he's set to be sharing the ring with Mick Conlan in Mick Conlan's neck of the woods for what is his newly obtained IBF title. Needless to say, I don't think Gary's going to cross over to Top Rank either.
Not for the winner of that fight. You see what he's talking about. You see who he's talking about.
He's talking about moving up 2 weight classes to lightweight to fight Isaac Cruz.
Mark Magsayo.
I don't think he's as hard a puncher as Isaac Cruz or as prolific. You know, Mark's a relatively limited fighter. And Isaac's limited too. He has limitations, but he throws more punches than Mark. Harder punches, I'd wager, and he's a harder man to discourage. He proved his durability opposite the ring Gervonta Davis, who knocked out
Rolly Romero and Hector Garcia and Mario Barrios, but he couldn't knock out Isaac. I don't think Gary
Russell don't knock out Isaac Cruz. Isaac Cruz knocks out Gary Russell. But if Gary wants to tempt fate, if that's what he wants to do, more power to him.
Doesn't want to run it back with Mark Magsayo, avenge the loss, or maybe pursue the winner of Figueroa versus Magsayo?
Already set to go down. That's on the Showtime calendar. Gary figures he'll get more money for fighting Isaac than staying where he is, so that's likely why he wants to move up, or at least a part of it. I think Isaac would knock him out.
It's been over a year since he lost to Mark Magsayo. If he were to fight Isaac straight away off that kind of layoff, he gets knocked out. Gary was never the biggest of featherweights. He certainly won't be any bigger as a lightweight.
Doesn't have the frame for it. Wasn't the biggest puncher as a featherweight. He won't be a bigger puncher up there at lightweight.
I don't think Gary can keep Isaac off of him.
But as stated, if he wants to tempt fate and court disaster, more power to him. That'll be his latest loss, if they fight.